Well, welcome back, everybody. It's been a little bit of a long time since our last podcast at the Insurance Collaboration, but it's well worth the wait here today with our guest today, Kim Poulopoulos from Swiss Re, Head of Mortality Innovation and Transformation. So Kim, really appreciate you jumping on today and welcome to the Pulse of Prevention podcast.
Absolutely, Mitch. Thanks for having me.
I am particularly excited about this podcast because I'm very intrigued on the reinsurance side. You are our first guest on the reinsurance side, and also from a collaboration standpoint, obviously your position is very relevant to our mission to help improve health in the insurance industry. So why don't we start with your background and how did you exactly land into the world of reinsurance and your position at Swiss Re?
Sure, absolutely. Mitch, if you told me years ago when I was at Fairfield U in the computer labs working on my computer science major, I probably would have never thought that I'd spend most of my day talking about mortality and longevity. But I happened upon, as many of us do, the life insurance industry early in my career, focused sort of on the technology, IT aspects of things. And as soon as I saw the profound impact that life insurance can have, I was hooked and there was no leaving it, right? So going from how do we use technology sort of in our reinsurance systems to being able to look at how do we use technology to improve the lives of people. It's just been a journey that I've been so excited to be on and so glad I'm at the point where I can use the tech to really help, enable the world to become more resilient.
That is very, very fascinating. And, we're the main topic of our talk today is obviously around longevity and mortality innovation. And so that can mean a lot of different things to people in the industry. What exactly are your focus areas at Swiss Re?
Sure. Yeah. So I'd say, Swiss Re has done a great job over the years. We have a strong understanding of risk, right? We know what influences long-term mortality. We know what the impacts can be. And I'm glad to see we've finally started to really look at, so how do we begin to use that knowledge to impact the outcomes, right? And working with our carriers and other partners like yourself to really find ways to make that impact. And so when we start to think about what are those drivers, we focus in on three main areas: cancer, mental health, and then to me, the most important one, because it underlies it all, metabolic health. And that means sort of taking our world class risk insights and pairing them with tools, with partners, with data and education to really help to begin to move the needle on those sort of three focus areas.
Metabolic health is certainly a lot, is certainly a popular topic in the insurance industry, but overall also in the political sphere. What exactly, why is it so important to you at Swiss Re, and what really led you down the path to really focus in on metabolic health?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, when you look at the US in general, right, we have 53% of US adults that are pre-diabetic or diabetic, 70% of US adults being overweight or obese. And when you break that down, a lot of what underpins that is metabolic health. And there's different markers for metabolic health, right? Everything from excess weight around your abdomen to high blood pressure to cholesterol. And metabolic health sort of becomes the great unlock because 93% of Americans have at least one marker of ill metabolic health. You can sort of say, okay, Kim, great, but this is the insured population. We're much healthier. 70% of the American population that's insured has at least one marker of ill metabolic health. So it is impacting all of us. And when you look at those root causes, the way we sort of operate today, if you have excess weight, you're told to take more steps. If you have high blood pressure, you're given a pill to help manage that. But we're not getting to the root cause, which is that insulin resistance. And that root cause, if you then think about all of the different impacts it has, it's the known things, right? Diabetes, type 2 diabetes, heart disease, but it's also linked to 32 different types of cancer. PCOS, the leading cause of infertility in women in the US, Alzheimer's, dementia, tons of different metabolic or mental health sort of impairments as well. And so if we start to focus on those root causes and start to change the trajectory of that insulin resistance in Americans, we believe that can have the greatest impact on all of the non-communicable diseases we're seeing related to mortality.
The numbers I hadn't heard some of those numbers that you laid
Yeah.
out. They really are staggering. And I know from a political standpoint, they just the new administration had essentially flipped the food pyramid. And while that brings some critique from some in the industry and elsewhere, obviously we're not doing something right in the last 20 or 30 years.
Exactly.
Very
Yeah.
late. So it is pretty staggering to see where we've gone from not only in the U.S. but globally as well. And your focus seems very warranted on this path of metabolic health,
Yeah.
certainly.
Thank you.
Yeah. And so, what exactly are you doing from an innovation standpoint to address this? I think I saw a recent article that you and your team did a focus pilot in the UK. Maybe talk a little bit more about that and any other type of opportunities that you've been working on at Swiss Re.
Sure, absolutely. So maybe I'll highlight there's, as you said, sort of global programs that we've partnered with different carriers on across various countries. So the UK and Australia are sort of two of the main focus areas. In the UK, we worked with both our internal employees as well as disability claimants. And the focus was on their health and especially for those claimants on a return to work. And so they were offered an intensive metabolic health program focused mainly on the nutrition aspect of things. And given that, and the results were staggering. People were returning to work sooner than they had been. And it was, equating to real hard dollars. So you were seeing on average 160,000 pounds per claimant of reserve release. So that's incredible, right? That's showing that if you get people engaged in these programs, they're going to make a difference in their lives. And then if I start to then look at, okay, so how does that resonate within the US? Well, there's programs like this that have been operating in the US just outside of the life insurance sector. So corporate self-insured space, obviously that's a crucial space that cares just as much about metabolic health and medication and the healthcare costs as we do from an insurance lens. And they've been able to offer employees in those groups programs. And there's programs that combined have taken tens of thousands of people through. And again, big factor on the nutritional advice. So as you said, Mitch, glad to see the food pyramid sort of flipped on its head because that's a start in the right direction. But, really empowering people to understand from a personal perspective what's happening in their bodies, whether it be they're offering them a continuous glucose monitor so they can get that immediate personalized feedback, or whether it be, they're focused on a keto program and they've got, a fancy little keto mojo to help them focus in on that. These programs are coaching people through for their individual selves what it is they can do. And they've had success in reversing diabetes. We would have never heard of that 5 to 10 years ago, right? But now you've got, as I said, tens of thousands of people going through these programs. They've got statistics like 50% of the people who go through the program end up in reversal and remission from their type 2 diabetes. And it's not like the other 50%, oh, we, forgot about them. It's market improvement. It's just not to the technical definition of reversal, right? And so people's lives are being changed by these programs. And so for me, it's all about how do we take those learnings from the programs we're doing globally, and how do we take the learnings from the programs we've seen success in the US and bring them into the life insurance industry.
Yeah, I know. I've seen many articles from your medical team talking about the benefits of the keto diet. I think it's hard for people to get their minds around that it actually it works. I can remember just a side story when I was playing golf professionally. I was reading a magazine about the benefit or the ability to only eat bacon for 2 weeks and you would lose weight. At the time I was like, there's no way that's humanly possible. And so
Yeah,
I tried it for a week, and sure enough, I lost weight. And so while I don't think, that might not necessarily be the optimal, way to go about it, the fact that that's possible and can reverse a lot of the conditions that you just laid out. It's really exciting and it's very encouraging that to see a pilot take off like it has, and those effects that you all have found.
Yeah, yeah, and the keto diet's not for everyone either, right? So I think the important part is a lot of these programs that you're seeing, that part of their intake process is let's talk about, what are your sort of factors that impact it? Do you have support at home? Who does the cooking? Where do you live? Are you a vegan? Are you a vegetarian? Are you living in one of the food deserts? Are you a truck driver? We've seen a program that's offered long haul truck drivers success, and they're not eating, and sitting down and having the bacon every day or a steak for dinner. They're doing drive-throughs and convenience stores, and they found ways to sort of educate on, okay, what are the right things to go about there. So yes, it's not the keto is, or the lack of sugar and lack of processed foods is a big piece, but there's ways, depending on what your dietary preferences or needs are, that programs like this can work for everyone.
And you touched on, I don't think in our journey at the collaboration, I didn't give enough significance to changing, to setting up programs to changing behaviors. To not only do they have the information that a diet such as a keto diet will work, but really incentivizing and producing healthier habits for those policyholders is key for
Yes.
insurers to consider, and very very important in this process to reverse many of the health trends that you laid out.
Yeah, absolutely. And Mitch, I think, a big piece again goes back to sort of the innovation and the tech, right? So I'm the type of person that's always on the cutting edge of technology. So I joke, if they made a chip that they could implant in my brain that would make life easier, I'd be the first one out there, lining up to have it inserted. Maybe that's a bit drastic, but so as we started on this journey, I personally said, okay, let me check out the tech and the innovation that's coming. And so I went through a program myself, ordered a continuous glucose monitor. I've done different diets, I've tried different things. It's sort of the, oh yeah, I'll do it for a while, and then it changes back to this. But having a continuous glucose monitor on, I could see what that stress was doing to my body. And I think that personalization and the ability of that technology to provide me with my own insights was a game changer. So for me, I lost over 50 pounds, incredible improvements in all of my blood measurements. It was really incredible to see for myself the value that the personalization and these tools can have.
That must have been a very cool realization, and congratulations on that journey.
Oh,
I think given the topic, I'd be remiss on not asking you and your opinions on the very relevant topic of GLP-1s right now. I think obviously it dominates insurance media, and to the point of the obesity trends that we're seeing is very exciting, but at the same time, there are a lot of unknowns with it.
yeah.
What are your thoughts on GLP-1s and its ability to curb some of these trends?
Yeah, and you're right. I mean, it's hard to have any conversation and not talk about it, whether it be professionally in the life insurance sector and what it's going to mean, or personally, with friends and family who are all exploring it. My thoughts are GLP-1s have their place, right? They definitely have an impact, can have an impact. The place where I think they have the most success is when they're also partnered with some sort of behavioral or nutritional change. Because for a long-term sustainability, you want people not just to be taking a magic pill that's going to, suppress their appetite, slow down their digestion, and help them, but you want something that they start to begin to learn and change what that means, right? And so they can eventually come off those medications. They can eventually make the decisions for themselves on what does work, what doesn't work for them. But yeah, I mean, Swiss Re has done some great modeling around how we foresee the impact of GLP-1s, and as they manage side effects better, as we start to see some of the long-term implications, they're just going to get better and better, and we're going to see more Americans on them and probably staying on them for a longer period. But I think it's incredibly important that we also think about the support piece around that and that behavior change as well.
I would agree with that. I certainly, in my opinion, they certainly have their place, but I think there's a psychological effect to going through those behavioral changes and seeing bringing how you can bring these levels down with things like diet and lifestyle habits and for that to be able to maintain healthier habits after that, I think is to me would be a more promising way of going about it. But the science behind it is certainly promising and hopefully can lead to better lifestyle.
Agreed.
Well, it sounds like you have an exciting you've gone through an exciting pilot in the UK. What are some of the opportunities and maybe some of the hurdles for bringing those insights and more pilot programs and eventual large scale programs to the states? What do you see with that?
Yeah, I mean, we're excited. We think there is a big opportunity, right? And we can see sort of the win-win-win across the board. Jokingly, I think a lot of us say, beyond your friends and family, who cares more that you live a longer, healthier life? It's your life insurer, right? We're sort of next in line. So finding ways to bring the programs, I think there's a lot of energy and enthusiasm around it in the industry because we recognize that we can play that crucial role, and it doesn't have to be, at the sacrifice of business or profits. It sort of all works hand in hand, which is really nice. So yeah, we're looking at bringing similar programs to what we've done in the UK and applying them within the life insurance sector. So Swiss Re is really looking to enable, starting probably with the sickest of the sick, where they have the most value to gain, and so do we, at type 2 diabetes reversal programs. So we'd love to, help carriers find ways to offer these programs to their policyholders and see the success that could come along with that. But yeah, it's challenging. I mean, we've all seen as we try down the path of these health and wellness programs, there's different regulatory restrictions. States look at things differently. So we have to be cautious of how the offers are being made, who they're being made to. And then the other challenge that's interesting, if I compare the corporate self-insured space to the life insurance sector, is the corporate self-insureds know much stronger who their type 2 diabetics are, right? They're getting that claims information, they're seeing those prescriptions. Whereas in the life insurance sector, you may have an in-force population that hasn't been underwritten in 20 years. And so, how do you know those individuals to target? And how do you know what's going to resonate with who? And I think the short answer is you're not going to know everyone, right? And you're not going to know these types of programs may not be for everyone. They may say that's not what interests me. I'd rather do X, Y, and Z. And so we're also, from a Swiss Re perspective, really thinking about, okay, by individual, what are those messages that will resonate with some? What are the ways to, incentivize or entice others that they want to become part of this program? And so we're doing lots of research as well on that personalization and really how to enable that outreach that you have the most success for people to be interested in these types of programs.
It certainly can be complex in terms of getting everything in the the right direction and motion. It makes so much sense from a life insurance life insurance reinsurance perspective to have systems set up to promote healthier habits and go through that process on the life side. But I'm sure it appears that I came from the property and casualty side. It seems like a no-brainer, but it seems like in terms of getting life insurers to implement programs like this, it's been a little bit of a challenge. People point to John Hancock and their Vitality program, which has been awesome to see now for I think 10 or 15 years. I've lost count. But what do you think? Where do you see the life insurance industry moving towards to promote healthier policyholders in this effort?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Maybe I'll share a little bit my perspective on the types of programs. And I think that we have where we traditionally started, which is sort of the engagement programs, right? So a real focus on, hey, let's get people more generally to take more steps, to go to their checkups, to eat healthier. And there was lots of awareness and education, but it really was that big, broad brushstroke, and you're providing incentives, and sometimes you're even baking that into the product that's offered out there. On the flip side, where I've started to see more of the trend now is in this prevention and intervention space. And those are much more targeted programs to either individuals or to certain impairments, right? So great examples, the Grail Gallery test, where you're doing multi-cancer early detection. And now, in my mind, it's, a type 2 diabetes program. And there, I think the nice piece is it's a lighter lift from a carrier side of things. So rather than trying to stand up a broad program where you've got to drop lots of resource into it and sort of spend maybe a year or two creating the programs. With these interventions and prevention programs, you're looking at partners who have already created the wheel that once someone's in, they're going to stay on the wheel. They're going to keep going through the program. And those partners are responsible for that. And so really it's to the life insurance carriers to just offer the programs, support the programs, cost share in the programs. And so it becomes a little bit more of a space where carriers who maybe aren't certain of how this will resonate with their policyholders can start to dip their toes in the water. They can do pilots. They can look at, how does this resonate with policyholders? What does the take-up rate look like? And so it gives me a little bit of encouragement in the broader spectrum of carriers that maybe can support a program that's more focused in the prevention or intervention.
Yeah, I would think that the technology advancements and being able to roll it out in a much more efficient way, compared to 10 years ago would certainly incentivize those to move a little bit faster. Those that have followed the collaboration, given the trends that we've seen post pandemic, we think there's a very big incentive for those to take it on. But before the pandemic, longevity had been getting better, and so I certainly understand the complexity to take on initiatives like this, but it seems like with those technology advances, we're very close at having more and more of the life insurance industry take on these initiatives.
Definitely. And I think, life insurers are also beginning to think about that relationship they have with their policyholders, right? So it's not just sort of sell it and forget it. And there's a lot of focus on, what we would deem sort of the living benefits. So rather than just, being there at a moment in time when someone dies, you're now there throughout the course of their life. And so finding those things that you can help sort of offer them that they appreciate during the living years becomes incredibly important. And again, back to, we want you to live longer, healthier life. You and your friends and your family want you to live a longer, healthier life. And we've got the insights that know what that is and how we can help sort of support that. So why not use that knowledge to our advantage? And I think a lot of carriers are starting to think more and more in that direction, which leads naturally to a lot of the focus in that health and wellness space.
I'm sure somebody has done the study, but I would love to see a pool or a large scale study of asking those who have life insurance to actually name their life insurance company.
Yeah.
I'm sure it would be low if they have. I'm sure they've done it, but to your point of connecting with policyholders in a different and meaningful way, I think there's a tremendous opportunity for life insurers to connect with
Absolutely.
policyholders in a way that has not been done in the past. So.
Yes. Yeah.
It sounds like you and your team had a recent event at your office in New York. You want to expand a little bit more on that?
Yes, yeah. So last week in our Armonk, New York office, we hosted an event called the Metabolic Equation. And so it was an incredible 2 days where we brought together some of the top experts in the metabolic health space. So we had published authors, medical officers, physicians, people who are running some of the programs I've mentioned, journalists, I mean, you name it, with a real focus on sort of the nutritional science aspect of things. So we spent the first day sort of driving that engagement and awareness for our clients who attended. And then we spent the second day going into some of these programs that we've seen, and it's everything from the type 2 diabetes reversals programs to things like an app where someone could go in and monitor and educate and learn on their own. So the full spectrum of people who are on that sort of metabolic health trajectory. And it was incredible. I mean, it was just astonishing to hear the insights. And Mitch, some of those numbers I shared earlier, came from that research that the various experts there had done. But there was just the next level of depth to how impressive this is in probably all of the wrong ways of where we stand as a country. And as you mentioned earlier, it's not just the US, right? We're seeing this in so many other countries as well. And then having sort of that second day focus on, well, here's some ways that we as an industry can begin to focus and can begin to change, and here's what we can offer. And we wrapped up the 2 days with 3 personal testimonials. And I mean, if you want to give us all a reason and a rationale for purpose, talk to someone who's been on a journey like this. We had a gentleman who shared he was over 530 pounds, a type 2 diabetic. He had seen his doctor and was more or less given 6 months to live, and was having his insulin increased yet again. And he ended up going home over the weekend after having that appointment, coming into his job where they offered him a program like this. And he said, what's the harm? What do I have to lose? And he's now, 220 pounds off every single medicine he was on, which was not just the diabetes, it was heart disease medicine, it was blood pressure, it was, cholesterol medication, he had migraines, he shared he could barely move and walk. And now his quality of life and the way he's living, and the fact that he'll live a lot more longer than those 6 months that were given to him, is just awesome. And to think, we as an industry can support and can enable those types of stories is what gets me excited to get out of bed every day and find ways to make it happen.
That is very, very powerful and very, very inspiring, and just shows you the gravity of what we're up against, but what we can do when we put our resources and efforts to do something like that. That's really must have been cool to see in person and during the presentation. That's awesome. Any other events coming up for 2026? I know we're both the podcast will be released after our conference in Austin next week, where we're both attending at the Association of Home Office Underwriters, which is very exciting 3-day conference out there. I want to give a quick shout out to Steve Saborin at the collaboration who will be presenting on day one. But any other events for 2026?
Yeah, so we're looking at some of the industry conferences and seeing if there's ways we can continue to spread the education and the awareness. I think we did, from a Swiss Re perspective, a great job of sort of building the momentum around the what is metabolic health and why should we all start to care about it. And now I think we'll start to look at, heading into the direction of what are those impacts. And I think a really important one that often gets underlooked at is the mental health space. So again, back to, some of those longer term disease states like Alzheimer's, but also, some of the depression and bipolar and several other things where there's a very strong linkage. And so, I'd love to raise the awareness and get people thinking about the broader scope that we can impact by focusing again on how do we get people healthier.
Yeah, the mental health side is critical. I think it was pretty much in all the earnings on the health insurance side, that is, a big part of the higher utilization had to do with mental, both structurally, but from a neurological perspective, but also, with people's mental health. And it's apparent that it's, across the industry, across our country, and something that needs to be addressed. So that's wonderful that you and your team are taking that very important subject on.
Thank you.
So we touched a little bit on it earlier, but the next 5 to 10 years, where do you see a lot of the proactive health initiatives moving towards in the life insurance industry? Do you see it changing pretty dramatically in the next 5 years or so? Do you think it's going to take a little bit longer than that? What do you see in the next 5 to 10 years?
I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that it changes. I think, everyone wants a purpose, right? And everyone wants to do what they can to sort of change the world. And to me, I think the life insurance industry has so many of those people who happened here, right? But have that noble purpose in mind. And so I think, the fact again that we can combine that purpose with profits, I think is massive for our industry. And I'm hopeful that we're finding ways to make it easier and easier for people to get access to information, technology, personalization that will really allow these types of programs to take off. And I think our industry is ready to go with that and really excited about how we can enable people to sort of live those longer, healthier lives.
I agree. I certainly feel a momentum shift towards everything that you described, and I've gotten a much better appreciation that really good ideas and good incentive programs can take time in the insurance industry. It's just the realization that our industry does not move quite as quickly as others, but at the same time, we're very hopeful and encouraged by the domino effect that a lot of what you and your team are doing at Swiss Re and a few others are doing in the industry, and can have a really important effect on the trajectory of health, not only in the U.S. but globally as well. So it's very
Yeah.
exciting.
Yeah. And I think it takes people like us who are passionate about it, right? And our organizations who are willing to sort of enable that drive. And we'll move the needle together, one person at a time, if that's what it takes.
1% at a time. I like that. I like that a lot. Well, Kim, thank you so much for joining our podcast and your leadership that you have shown personally and your team at Swiss Re. And we really appreciate everything you're doing from a health perspective and one person at a time. We might take that tagline at the collaboration, but thank you so much for joining the Pulse of Prevention and looking forward to seeing you in Austin next week.
Yes, look forward to it, Mitch. Thank you so much for having me.